In this video, we are going to explore using an application called Google Meet in order to host some kind of web conference. Now, the reason I'm recording this video at the present is because our school is going to remote learning. And so we need to have some face-to-face time with our students, potentially. So we're going to take a look at how we can use Google Meet in order to accomplish that goal. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you are logged into your Google account, and then what we're going to do is find the Google Meet app. So I'm going to go to the app button that you have seen in many of your Google apps, and we're going to go to Meet. Now, if you do not see it or are not able to get access to it, that most likely means that you have not been provided the ability to use it by your administrator, and so you're going to need to get that ironed out before you continue. But it's enabled for this particular user, so we're going to go ahead and click that. Now, if this is the first time you've ever seen Google Meet, the first thing that you are presented with is typically some kind of artsy picture or illustration, and you have the time and the date up at the top left, and then you have some options here. So we have an option to join or start a meeting. We also see that there's nothing scheduled for today. Now, in order to schedule a meeting, you are going to use your Google Calendar. If you go to your Google Calendar and you add an event, what you can do is add some conferencing to that event. It's one of the options. And if you do that, then you are going to see anything that was scheduled for today pop up in this list. All right, at the top you also have some settings that you can deal with. The common settings you're going to see are for your audio and video. So this is a web conferencing software package. So typically we're going to need to test out our microphone and our video camera. So here I have my microphone and I'm all set, and you can see the little icon moving, so I'm all set there. I've got my speakers all set, and then we have some video. So I've got a webcam and I can see a little image there. You may, if you go to this, be prompted with some settings from your browser. It may be asking you for permission to use those devices, and it's a good idea that it's asking you permission if you've never done it. So you're going to need to go ahead and allow those items to continue on. All right, if you get stuck, just pause this video and try and deal with that, but be looking for some pop-ups that ask you whether or not you want to allow the microphone and the camera to be used. Alright, so we're going to continue and we're going to click join or start a meeting. Now, if you were joining someone else's meeting, you would enter their code, or perhaps they gave you a link to follow and you could follow that. We're starting our own meeting, so we're going to enter a nickname. We could also leave it blank as it says, but I like to give it a nickname. So I'm just going to say demo recording, and we're going to go ahead and click continue. And when we do that, we are presented with the meeting, and I can see my camera right there. I'm right there. I'm a little lower, so let's actually get out of my seat here. So now I'm out of my seat and I can see myself. I'm all set. There's the microphone option. Now if I wanted to, I could turn the microphone off, and that way I'm not going to be heard in my web meeting. You're hearing me because I'm recording on a different microphone. Turn it back on. If I don't want my face to be seen on camera, I can turn the camera off. It's really up to you. In some web conferences, you really want to be seen, in some you don't, and so it's really up to you how to determine what to use at that particular point. So right here we can see no one else is here. That's because I haven't invited anybody. So it's really up to you, if you're starting this meeting, to invite other people. And there's a couple ways that you can do that. The first way to do that is to actually just join the meeting. So let's go ahead and we'll join the meeting. And what that's going to do for us is it's going to provide us with some options. So here we have the demo recording nickname. So what I can do is I can send it off to someone else and have them join this meeting by using this particular nickname. Or what I can do is I can copy this link and send it to whomever I want to join the meeting, and they can use that link to join it. Now, anyone within my organization is going to be able to join this automatically, so I don't have to worry about anything like that. But if I do extend this to people from the outside, they will likely need to have permission to join. So if you're the one organizing it and you have somebody from the outside trying to join, you just may need to be prepared for some requests to join. We also have a dial-in, so if somebody needs to dial in on a phone in order to hear or participate, they can use that option there. Right now I can add people, so if I wanted to send an invite to people right now, I could do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy this link and I'm going to send it to some people, and hopefully they will join my meeting. Now I'm going to send that another way, but I'll also show you how I can add a person. So I'm going to add one of my students here, Ferris. We'll add him there. And then I'm going to add another student another way, just by sending them the link. So I'm going to send that invitation to Ferris, and I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to send my other invitation a different way. Okay, so I've sent those invites. I sent one via the screen that you just saw there, and I sent another one via email. So we'll see if those two individuals start joining. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my camera off. And now I am waiting. We'll see if anybody joins. Okay, here's our first customer. We've got Ferris. Well, I can see him right there, so I guess he's not taking the day off. His webcam is clearly on, and I'm sure that's him. And if I listen closely, I can hear his audio, so his microphone must be on. Hear some background noise. I'm sure he didn't just put that on to pretend he was there. I can also go up to the upper right hand side and click on the icon with the people, and I can see his microphone active, the sound active. It gives me a list of all the people. If I click off of that, then everything goes away and I go back to what I'm viewing. Since he's the only one in there, I only see him, but here's my other student, and their microphone is definitely on and their camera is definitely on as well. Sounds like he's watching a movie in the background. So here I'm seeing these guys side by side. I'm going to talk about layout in just a moment. But one of the things I can do is I can actually focus in on one of them in particular if I would like. If I can go up to that list, but I can also come over here to the images, and if I click the little pin, that's going to enlarge that person for me. But just keep in mind that's only me. So I can unpin him too if I don't want to see him. Then I can hover over them and click their microphone. I can mute them, and that might be necessary in a big classroom situation. Alright, so I'm muting them. Alright, now that we can hear ourselves think a little bit, let's just talk about the muting. Just because I can mute individuals does not mean that they cannot unmute themselves. In fact, they can do that. So if you're in a large classroom situation, you definitely want to roll out some ground rules before you get started and get frustrated. Now, that gave you a little sampling of what you can see, what you can do. I can pin these guys, and that's what I see. Now, keep in mind, this is not forcing the other students to see these people. This is just my particular view. So you just got to keep that in mind. Now, if I go up here to the right-hand side, and I see this little people tab again, then here's another spot where I can mute these people. So I can see right now, I'm the only one that has the ability to talk. These guys are muted. And so that might be a good idea for your particular session. You may want to give them an opportunity to unmute themselves and talk, but again, you really want to make sure that you lay down some ground rules if you're dealing with a classroom or remote classroom situation. Now, one of the other things that I want to show you are some of the layout options that you have here. So right now I've just got two people side by side, but in the future I could have many different people all joining. And one of the things you want to pay close attention to is your layout. And you'll notice that we have several options. The first is auto, and auto is what I'm seeing right now. And one of the things about auto is you got to be careful, especially with the ability for people to talk. If their microphones are on and you're having a conversation, what will typically happen is whoever's talking or starts talking, that person will become the focus of your screen. And if somebody else starts talking, then that can change to them. So if you're having a discussion and people are talking over one another, it can be a little bit distracting. If people are pretty conservative and allow others to finish talking, then that can be a nice little feature where the person talking appears at the front and then the next person talking appears at the front, and that would be the view for most of the people. Now keep in mind, of course, that just because that's the view for yourself doesn't mean that's going to be the view for any of the other participants. They have the option of changing their layout just the same. And in fact, they can pin whoever they wish to their screen. So if you think that they're going to pin you, for example, you may be disappointed. They might be pinning someone else. So again, you may want to have some ground rules established for what kids are doing with their microphones and with their screens. It may be a good idea for you to ask all people to turn their cameras off while you are conducting a lesson, and the microphones as well. You're really going to need to judge that for yourself given the nature of what you're trying to accomplish and the age level, and of course the maturity level as well. Let's take a look at some of those other layout options, however. So here are some other ones that we want to take a look at. First is sidebar. In this view, I'm going to have one large image over here, and then I'm going to have thumbnails on the right hand side. And if I would like to put someone else in the center here, I can go ahead here and I can pin them, and that's going to put them in the center stage here. Okay, if I unpin that person, then I go back to the other view. Now, you're not really able to control which person you're able to see unless you pin them. So even if I go through this list and I click these people, I'm not going to see them in the larger view. It's really controlled by the Google Meet, and typically is going to be the last person who spoke. Okay, if I would like to see myself, I can go ahead and just click my icon. That's pinning me. If I undo that, then that's going to be another person. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another one. Here I can do a spotlight. So in this particular case, all I am seeing is one particular person. If I want to see myself, I can certainly do that and pin myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Charlie to start speaking. So I'm going to send him a little message. In order to do that, I'm going to use the little chat window here. So I'll go to chat and I'll say, Charlie, let's hear from you. Now, this is another area that you want to pay close attention to, because in a school situation, this has a tendency to be a place where students are going to get a little crazy. If you don't monitor the chat and don't set good ground rules for the chat, you may find that the students are more interested in sending chat messages than they are listening to the presentation. So we'll go ahead and send that message and we'll see if he responds. Okay, and so we can see that Charlie's kind of turned his mic back on, and if you listen closely, it appears that he's watching one of my favorite movies, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, for some odd reason. But anyway, I can go ahead and mute him because he's clearly not participating very well. So I'll go pull him down, I'll click mute, and now we won't be hearing from him anymore. But you'll notice that after I've muted him, he is the one that is now seemingly pinned to my screen. Again, I can change that. I can do whatever I want. So let's take a look at one of those other layout options. The last one is the tiled option. And so that's what I had before. I had two people here and it just tiled them. And so you can choose whichever layout you like for your particular session. But remember again that what layout you choose is just for you. This is not necessarily what the participants are going to see. Now let's take a look at some of the other options that I have while I'm presenting. If you are just doing a face-to-face and you turn your camera on, that's really all you need to do. But sometimes you would like to present your screen. So I'm going to click Present Now, and then I have an option. I can either present my entire screen, that's my entire desktop, everything that's visible on my desktop, or I can just select a window. So I'm going to select Window here, and then what I'm presented with are a list of windows that are options for the presentation. And you can see I have 3 windows here. Here I'm recording. This is a recording window that I have. This particular window is my Chrome browser. That's exactly what I'm using at the present. And then I also have another browser open. So I'm going to select this one here, and I'll click Share. And so I'm now working with this particular window here, but that's actually what is being presented to the student screens. This is what they are seeing at the present. And so perhaps this is a coding example that I wanted to demonstrate to them, and they can watch me and they can also hear me as I present, and I can do different things. Whatever it is that I'm attempting to share with my students. And of course, they can keep a very close eye on what I'm doing. And when I'm done, I can go ahead and click Stop Sharing. and then we'll be back to the normal view. All right, so let's take a look at some of the other options down here. Well, before we get to that, we can also take a look at turn captions on. So if we decide that we're going to turn on captions, one would anticipate that you're going to see a prompt or pop-up of all of the things that are being discussed. And of course, you can see that being done on my screen. So that's pretty cool. Now, I don't know how well this works. Perhaps if you start talking pretty fast, you may find that things are not working overly well. But I'm taking a look at this and it seems to be working quite well. Now, in a group discussion, if you have a lot of people talking at the same time and over each other, certainly you could end up having some mistyped words, but I think overall this is demonstrating that it's pretty capable of providing some closed captioning. If I recall correctly, though, this is only available for English at the present. All right, I'm going to turn that off. Let's take a look at some other options here. You can go full screen if you want. Here you can also turn on captions or turn them off. And then you can also go into your settings. These are the same settings that we saw before, so you can adjust your audio or video settings. All right, again, you do have the option of seeing all of your students up here. You can add people once a session has started. Perhaps you forgot to add somebody at the beginning. You can certainly do that. One of the things that I failed to mention before is the fact that you can also remove some people from the discussion. So this is a really important thing to have if you just have some people that are not participating very well. And especially in a remote learning environment, this can be very beneficial to you as far as classroom management is concerned. But again, you probably want to, before you start dealing with the removing of people, really outline for your students what kind of expectations you have for them, so that they understand how to participate and they understand the cost of not participating very well. Removing a person is probably going to be one of your last steps, but it may be necessary in some cases. So if I need to boot somebody, let's say this person is just not participating very well, I just may remove them from the conversation altogether. Now the question is, does that allow them to restart? And that's a really good question. Okay, so you can see there the answer. They can rejoin, and if they do rejoin, you'll notice that they are unmuted. So again, that's going to be something that you also will need to deal with as far as classroom management is concerned. Lastly, you do have the option of recording a meeting, but you should use extreme caution, especially in the situation where you're dealing with students. Everyone needs to have given consent in order for the meeting to be recorded. I've done another video on recording a session for sharing later on. You should check that one out if you want to know more about recording. Now, when you are ready to leave the call, you can go ahead and press the leave call button. That doesn't force everybody else to leave the call. They can certainly stay in there if they choose to. It's also important to note that the link that was created for that particular meeting will actually stay live for some time. So you could reuse that link, or you could simply start a new meeting if you wanted to. Okay, I hope that gave you a good overview of how to use Google Meet, and I hope you find it very beneficial for you